Good day, readers. Today is Friday, December 11th, 2020. This is Miss Phillips, and thank you for joining me for your reading workshop lesson for today. The materials that you will need for this lesson are your pencil, a student copy of the article we are reading today, Dear Mother Earth, and also your reading journal. If you don't have these supplies, go ahead and pause the lesson to collect them, then come back to join me. Okay, now that you have your materials, let's get started. Our objectives for this lesson are: I will model how good readers find the gist and synthesize. We will recognize important details within the text, and you will find the gist and synthesize your thinking. I found this great article that I want to share with you. Take a moment to look over the article. It's great, don't you think? What do you think about this topic? What do you know about this topic? You probably know quite a bit, right? Because we've been reading all about being environmentally friendly, and we've also been writing a persuasive dealing with environmental issues. You know how hard it can be to remember all of the information whenever we read. When good readers read nonfiction, they read for the gist, or the most essential information, the bigger ideas. To do this, readers have to synthesize the information. When we synthesize, we pare down the information, delete some of the less important details, and come up with a bigger picture. For instance, if I was going to synthesize the story, The Three Bears, I wouldn't have to tell every single detail by repeating all of the action and the events that took place. That's way too much information. The gist recounts important information and gives us big central ideas, sometimes even the lesson or moral of the story. So, a synthesis or gist of the three bears might be: a girl wandered into an empty house and caused a lot of mischief. When the owners, a family of bears, found her, she learned the hard way that to not go into a stranger's house when no one is home. When we synthesize, we pare down the information, eliminate some of the less important details, and come up with the bigger picture. When we read for the gist, we need to add our thinking to the information. Synthesizing is a strategy that helps us change our thinking as we read. Notice how I said that Goldilocks learned the hard way. That was what I was thinking after hearing the story. When we synthesize, we combine our thinking with the information to come up with a central idea. I have this two-column chart, which is labeled gist on one side and thinking on the other. Take some time now to copy this blank chart into your reading journal. You can pause now to do this. Okay, now that you're back, go ahead and put your pencil down. You'll not need it for now. In the first column, I'm going to write down the big ideas of this section. Then in the second column, I'm going to write down my thinking. Notice how the chart is divided notice how the article is divided into sections with subheads. We see them over and over again in nonfiction, don't we? Standard subheads, question subheads, and of course, inferential subheads are found often through nonfiction. I'm going to start reading at the beginning here. Dear Mother Earth, an earthly advice column. Sometimes everyone, even Antarctica, needs a little help. Dear Mother Earth, it's me, Antarctica. You know, the pole down south. I have sub-zero temperatures, glaciers, ice, penguins, seals, whales, birds, and scientists. I also have some problems. Here are a couple of them. Problem number 1. I'm melting. Okay, so I'm not melting right away, but things could get messy. That is, if your temperature keeps rising. The burning of fossil fuels like coal and oil increases the amount of CO2 or carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Trees and plants absorb CO2, but large forest areas are being cut or burned down to make room for farmland and buildings. The more CO2 is produced than the atmosphere can absorb. As the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere increases, the greenhouse effect becomes stronger and Earth's temperature rises. This global warming could melt some of my ice. This could cause your sea level to rise and many coastal cities to flood. This is interesting. I'm going to go back and reread it slowly to myself, thinking about how I might make this shorter by deleting some of the details and getting the gist. Okay, so when I synthesize information, I don't have to include all of the details, but I need to pare it down to the most important ones. I need to delete the details that don't support the bigger ideas. First, I'm going to create a list of important details within the section that I read. So I'm thinking that all of the items listed, sub-zero temperatures, glaciers, and penguins, are just the details, the smaller details. But problems is an important detail within this section that supports the bigger idea. When I read on, I notice that there are important details such as global warming, sea level rise, coastal cities flood. I won't put farmland on the list, but I'll put these others. Now I'm going to use my important details list to write the gist of the section that we read in the first column of my Reading for Gist anchor chart. I'm going to include central ideas and leave out the less important details. When I synthesize information, I need to pare it down to get the gist. And a synthesis is the most important ideas. I've decided that the gist is that the Earth has some problems. Global warming could cause the sea level to rise, to be higher, and cities will flood. When I write for the gist, I'm trying to collapse all of the writing in the text into a shorter form, but I still include the central, most important ideas. I believe I did this pretty well with this first section that we read. So within this first section, I stated that the gist was the Earth has some problems. Global warming could cause the sea level to be higher and the cities to flood. Now, in the second column, I'm going to write down my thinking. Whenever I read this section and I came up with a gist, mostly I'm surprised by how much the Earth could be affected from a temperature increase. I did not realize that sea levels rising and sea levels would completely rise and cities would flood from a temperature increase. I want you to take some time when I say go, pause the video and jot down the gist from the first section into your own chart. Then come up with your own thoughts from whenever we read this section and write them down in the thinking column. You can go now to do this. Okay, welcome back. I cannot wait to read your thoughts later. Let's try this next part together. I'll read the next few paragraphs and I want you to follow along as I read. Problem number 2. Holy cow! There's a hole in the Earth's ozone layer. The ozone layer protects everything from the sun's harmful ultraviolet rays, and the hole is right above me. CFCs, or chlorofluorocarbons, have caused the hole. CFCs came from the chemicals once used in aerosol cans, styrofoam, and air conditioners. CFCs escape into the atmosphere and make their way to the Antarctic. The resulting ozone hole allows harmful ultraviolet rays from the sun to reach the Earth's surface. Too much ultraviolet radiation could reduce the number of shrimp-like krill in the ocean. This is a problem because Antarctic animals eat krill. Without krill, lots of these animals won't have enough to eat. And if they die, the animals that eat them won't have enough to eat either. Okay, take some time when I say go to jot down a few words or phrases that you believe are important details within this section we just read. Pause now to do this. Okay, now that you're back and you've written down those important details, let's see if you were close. Words such as hole in the ozone, ultraviolet rays, Earth's surface, krill, and the animals dying are words that stand out to me as important within this section. Remember, when you're finding the gist, you're paring down the information to include only the most important ideas from the text. When I say go, pause the video and jot down the gist in your chart for the section that we just read. Go now to do this. Okay, now that you've decided upon a gist for this subsection, I want to tell you something. One of the most important aspects of synthesizing information is that whenever we come across new information, we often think differently from that point on. New information changes our thinking. It might spur a question or give us a different perspective, or even make us infer something. That's what happened for me. I have this question now. I wonder, are there ways to reverse the damage that's been done to the earth? Take a moment to notice your inner conversation. What are you thinking as you reflect on the content of these two paragraphs? Jot down your thinking on your chart in the thinking column now. I hope you came up with some interesting thoughts or questions pertaining to our reading. I cannot wait for you to share them all with me. Now it's going to be your turn. I want you to take some time and finish reading the remainder of Dear Mother Earth, the article. Find one gist and 2 thinking points to add to your chart. Then take a picture of your chart and turn it into your teacher. Make sure that your picture is easy to read. Have a great rest of your day.